Saya is completely bamboozled after hearing all that, and asks whether Lu Sheng is basically implying they're just gonna die anyway. Our boy just smiles, then remarks that there's no need to be so pessimistic, and tells him that if things were really that bad, they can always just wait for the right moment and run, which leaves the two of them staring at each other wide-eyed. Meanwhile, the rest of the group clearly doesn't think that far ahead. Quite a few people believe they're already past the halfway point to the base, and that with a short rest, reaching there safely should be doable. With that thought fresh in their minds, they quicken up their pace, hoping to meet up with reinforcements as soon as possible. Even so, as time drags on, the feeling of unease keeps spreading. People continue to vanish from the group, and by the fifth stop, the number of missing has already climbed to 8. At this point, the expressions of the two officers turn downright ugly, while everyone else starts feeling like they're next. Suspicion crept in, and they begin distancing themselves from each other, and what was once an elite force drawn from more than a dozen star sectors quickly turned into a pack of scared puppies. Suddenly, the fat man calls for everyone to halt and announces that there's no need to move forward anymore. He decides they'll hold their ground and wait for Lord Skeleton Blade to find them, confident that once reinforcements arrive, every problem will sort itself out. Even so, he isn't fully at ease himself because this kind of situation is honestly first for him too, and this is the only choice he can think of. Lu Sheng stays near the back, calmly observing, before a faint smile forms on his face. He notes that this is getting interesting. Ever since Sar and Huang Ji started disappearing, he's been closely monitoring everyone in the group with his psychic power, including the two officers. He calls it mental surveillance because, after all, it's about coverage. It's like the difference between someone standing in a room and only seeing what's in their line of sight, versus a camera that captures the entire room at once. The officers are like the people inside the room, watching over the team, while Lu Sheng is sitting in the control room, seeing everything. In other words, the team itself is the first layer, the officers the second, the crowd the third, and Lu Sheng the fourth. And yet, even then, when the head count comes up short, he still has no idea how that person vanished and only knows it happened instantly. He studies the others, then looks up at the sky, realizing there must be someone standing on a fifth layer above them all. Just then, his expression shifts. He starts scanning his surroundings, the sudden change leaving the two nearby completely confused. The strange behavior from our boy was all because just moments ago, 2 more people disappeared, and our boy pressed a hand to his head, trying hard to recall what they looked like, but their faces blurred in his memory, slipping away no matter how hard he tried to remember. A bead of cold sweat slides down his face, and for the first time, even he feels a chill run through him. Lu Sheng knows for a fact that memory loss isn't something supposed to happen to him. He notes that even a random passerby he brushed shoulders with decades ago would still have a clear face in his mind, let alone someone he met recently. He takes a deep breath and clenches his fist as a sense of unease slowly creeps in. Reflecting on it, he concludes that the one standing on the 5th layer must possess some bizarre ability that could even affect memories. At that point, he decides relying on psychic power alone isn't going to work anymore. He reflected that to whom is behind all this, his own mental perception is nothing more than a giant web full of holes. As a result, he can't lock onto the target at all, and could even end up backfiring on him. He glances around again, briefly unsure of what to do next. Meanwhile, the panic within the group intensifies. Some people are already on the verge of breaking down. That's when Lu Sheng's thoughts shift to emotions. He almost forgets the fact that he can manipulate emotions. Even if his mastery isn't on the same level as the person behind all this, it should still be enough to fish out some clues. Currently, he has control over anger, sorrow, fear, and joy. He then lifts a hand, and strands of energy quietly spread out, landing on everyone in the group without drawing any attention. All he needs to do now is link their emotional states and monitor them. He notes that the group is already drowning in anxiety, so the first 3 emotions exist in everyone to some degree, while joy is almost completely absent. He further inspects the group, confirming that people are growing visibly anxious, with some regretting ever coming here and others chiming in and venting non-stop. Then he activates his ability. Instantly, the entire group burst into laughter. For no clear reason, at the worst possible moment, everyone start recalling the funniest memories of their lives. One man thinks about his cheating ex falling into a pit of filth. Another recall the day he lost his virginity. One way or another, everyone is suddenly in great spirit. Lu Sheng keeps observing, calmly counting heads through the emotional link. Then, all of a sudden, one of the threads at the back of the group snap. The emotional seed there goes dark, so he turns to look behind him and immediately realizes it has begun. A man who was laughing just moments ago suddenly turns red-eyed, rage flooding his face as he grits his teeth and strides toward the opposite direction. Yet the people around him act as if nothing is happening. At this moment, Aside from Lu Sheng, no one even notices the man leaving. That was all our boy needed to know. Lu Sheng reflects that the person in the dark is so much stronger than everyone in the group. Not only can they not detect what is happening, they also have no way to stop it. Lu Sheng knows that if he steps out right now, he'll instantly become the obvious target like the classic bird that sticks its head out first. That being said, part of him still wants to personally experience what the dude is capable of. It's already clear that the one hiding in the dark is a master at playing with emotions. Maybe clashing with someone like that could be hugely beneficial, but there's always that chance of him losing, especially since he has no idea what happened to those who had already wandered off. Gritting his teeth, he ultimately decides to give it a try. After all, the guy is probably just 13th level, and there's no real reason for him to be afraid. With determination in his eyes, our boy quietly moves to the back of the group, blending in among the weakest members, who he thinks are likely the next targets. And he's absolutely right. Before long, someone right beside him gets hit. The guy's temperament flips instantly, getting mad out of nowhere, and no one notices the sudden outburst, nor does anyone notice him leaving on his own. Lu Sheng, however, casually pats the man on the shoulder and asks if he's okay, fully expecting such an abnormal move to draw attention. And just like that, he was hit too. Lu Sheng allows the strange energy to invade without resisting. His expression shifts as images start looping violently in his mind, scenes of him being bullied, mocked, humiliated. Each memory feels painfully fresh, as if it happened yesterday. One after another, they pile up, dragging out frustration, irritation, resentment, and finally, pure anger. He clutches his head, his face twisting as he mutters curses under his breath. Then, with a roar, terrifying energy erupts outward, surging as if it's about to tear free from his body. The power turns inward, consuming itself, and in mere seconds, his entire body was covered in flame. Meanwhile, the real version of our boy strolls over with his hands in his pockets, calmly and curiously sizing up the scene. At this point, he already understands how the dude manipulates people's emotions, and frankly, he finds it a little disappointing. He notes that the dude fell for it immediately, all because he tested things with nothing more than a clone. Lu Sheng takes a deep breath and blows forward, causing the strange fire to let out a sharp scream before dispersing completely. As we return to the real world, the people nearby slowly regain their senses. The affected man scratches his head in confusion, having no idea what just happened. Meanwhile, our guy starts sending mocking messages toward the one hiding in the shadows, telling him train for another 100 years before playing more tricks. While all this was happening, the space around him suddenly stirred again, and our boy can practically picture the glare and the rage of the other side. Just as he starts laughing, that sensation returns once more. He's dragged back into the emotional space again. This time, our boy simply waits in silence, then remarks that there's at least some improvement. Standing before him now is a much larger creature. Even so, Lu Sheng doesn't feel the slightest bit worried. Instead, he decides to prepare a small return gift. He clenches his fist, then opens his palm, energy spilling out as a massive gust of wind roars forward and slams straight into the creature. After that, he even strikes a pose, casually noting that the opponent doesn't seem all that impressive. Either the enemy is just too weak, or Lu Sheng himself is simply too strong. Maybe it's both. That brief exchange still leaves him with some gains, especially when it comes to controlling emotions. Some while later, the thing sneaks in several more times, but each attempt gets disrupted by Lu Sheng, one interference after another, to the point where the other side's irritation becomes obvious. Somewhere in the void, a blood-red eye locks onto this place, staring viciously, yet no one else can sense it. Not even the two officers who are more focused on what they should do next, because even without moving an inch, people are still disappearing. Their discussion doesn't escape Lu Sheng's notice. He feels a bit stuck himself. Even though he's messed with the guy in the shadow multiple times, he still hasn't been able to stop every single success. The officers continue calming everyone down, telling them to stay put and wait for reinforcements to arrive. That clearly isn't the response Saya was hoping for. He feels everything about this situation is way too bizarre, with no clue where the missing people have gone. Tungsten asks Saya what they should do next, and Saya starts panicking as well. That's when Lu Sheng walks over and tells them not to worry, saying they just need to wait. Looking into the distance, he announces that the reinforcement should be arriving very soon. When Saya sees Lu Sheng return, he rushes up and hugs him, genuinely relieved, having thought Lu Sheng might have disappeared too. Over the next stretch of time, the guy in the shadow refuses to give up and makes several more attempts. But with everyone gathered closely together, our boy finds it much easier to keep watch. Each time, he intercepts things smoothly. After a few back and forths, and especially after the third failed attempt, the guy finally seems to give up. Just then, the fat man grows visibly excited and announces that at most half a day remains before reinforcement arrives. That news lifts everyone's spirits, and cheers break out across the group. As the minutes ticked by, people became less anxious. Before long, half a day passes. Everyone suddenly looks in the same direction as a figure rapidly flies toward them from afar. But just as that happens, the fat man finishes a call and reports that Lord Skeleton Blade has been held up by something and still needs more time before arriving. Hearing that, everyone looks back to the sky and begins wondering if that's the case. Then who is coming this way? A sharp sense of unease rises in the female officer's chest as she stares into the distance.